our pleasure to welcome in Clinton Yates for his Friday visit. What's up, sir?
How are you, Gregory? Are you well this Labor Day weekend? I am.
I am very excited for the long weekend. Your boy needs Monday off, and I'm pretty pumped about it.
Yeah, I hear that. What we got going on in the district today?
Well, we got college football realignment that I don't think really affects any of the teams here. It is kind of funny watching the Maryland fans react, though, because every single Maryland fan, and rightfully so, based off the tradition and all that kind of stuff, hated leaving the ACC for the Big Ten. And now it's like, well, thank God we did that. As you watch all this take place, and Cal and Stanford and SMU going to the ACC feels as absurd as at least a tie for first of some of the most absurd moves that have happened. Like, how do you, like, I don't even know what the question is here. Like, what's your reaction to this continued deterioration of all things traditional in college sports?
You know, when UCLA and USC right here in Los Angeles decided they were going to make a jump to the Big Ten, my first thought was, okay, sure, yeah, let your football teams do whatever they want. When I realized, and this was months ago when this was announced, oh, you're taking every sport with you? As in, if I want to watch a baseball game with the Trojans, I might have to go to East Lansing on a Wednesday? Like, that was the first thing that came to my mind. And as these realignments have rolled on and gone through and further, I can't help but think of the student athletes, their families, and these coaches who are now forced to basically follow football around. And people always say, oh, well, they're the ones that make the money. They should be able to do this and they do that. If you're making that much money, then just break off. You know what I mean? And it really upsets me because you and I both know people at the youth football level, having covered college sports, having been to college, how much of a grind it already is for everybody at that level who's not playing football or not playing basketball. And just to think that these lives are going to get completely ripped apart. They're talking about meeting in the middle to play in Dallas and all this sort of other stuff. You just think to yourself, man, is this really worth it? Like, when did greed become so important that the entire fabric of what is college athletics, and I don't mean that in terms of amateurism. I mean that in terms of not just even regionalism, but like, if your parents can't watch you play, which is the goal of half the people that go to college to play sports anyway, well, then what's the point? Is this really all worth it? And that's kind of where I am right now with it, Craig.
No, I'm with you. And I think the more I think about it, the more I like the idea of football splitting off because it's just different, right? Like football from a financial model is obviously very different, but also it's the only one that like you do it once a week. And the NFL, same thing. Like, it's one game a week. You practice all week, then you go play on the weekends. And this game's on Saturday instead of on Sunday. But like, it's not that ridiculous. And by the way, you fly a chartered flight. That's how every single college, not just the big ones, do it. They might fly on nicer planes at Ohio State versus Louisiana Lafayette, but you're traveling like 150 people. You're chartering a plane. So I just think like there's a football model that can work. And and my question is, can there be a reversion in the other sports to go? So, hey, let's rewind 15 years, get our regional stuff back, and make college sports like they used to be, which is actually beneficial for everyone.
Well, not to get into too far of a discussion on sort of media rights and the sort of whole analysis of that, but I don't think they're going to have a choice. I think there's going to be something that bursts in this television money bubble in terms of the actual demand for watching college football that people assume is out there that I don't necessarily think is going to be there. Let me tell you something. The reason why people want to watch Arizona versus Arizona State is because everybody in Arizona is going to that game or insert regional whatever here. The whole point of establishing patterns of things that you do is that people know what to expect and they can show up. If you decide to force people to drive halfway across the country, I'm thinking about Virginia playing in, Nashville this weekend against Tennessee, that's only got a certain shelf life for people who are not super diehards. And I just feel that it's projected on a path of demand that I don't necessarily think is going to be there in 10 or 15 years. And why you should have to harm other sports based on the different flexibility of desire for football, it just literally makes no sense to me. I said this on TV today, comes up in a little bit, but I really want to commend the North Carolina Board of Trustees, because they came flat out and said, this doesn't make sense to us. There's no reason we should be traveling all over the country for basic in-conference competition because what are we doing? And like, for all the teams that have sort of said, yeah, we're going to, hold our nose, North Carolina voted against expanding. And like, that to me showed a little bit of stones in terms of just common sense. What are we actually doing here, and is this worth our time, is a question that feels like was never answered, and it's kind of embarrassing as a sports fan to think, how did we let it get to this so quickly? The college presidents of all people. Most people who go to colleges can't name their president and never will be able to name their president and wouldn't know them if they walked into the room wearing a jersey that said, I'm the college president. But instead, they get to run everything in athletics, and it's honestly, it's kind of depressing.
No, you're right. And so here's another theory I've been kicking around about this, too, in terms of the bubble bursting. What makes college sports great? And I don't think the college presidents and I don't think anybody that's making these decisions knows it, because the reality is, and this ready, back up, step away, Clinton. I'm going to separate you from this argument, even though I know you probably agree with me. The product ain't that good. Like the football itself, the basketball itself, not that good. What makes college sports is that there's an emotional tie that is stronger than most professional teams. Of course, there's exceptions along the way, and it depends on the person and all that. But by and large, the reason we love college sports is because if I went to Syracuse, like I did, we've been playing Georgetown since the 1970s, and that's important to us. I couldn't name one Syracuse basketball player right now. I do not follow it anymore. I do care whether they beat Georgetown on December 9th. Like, I still care about that. Doesn't matter how they do it. It doesn't matter how ugly the game is. But that is the one game I will definitely watch this year. And it's about the rivalry and it's about the emotion more than it is about the basketball. And the same is true for football. Like, it's not that great of a football product when compared to the NFL. It's much slower. The first down rules are terrible. The hashes are so wide. It creates, like, funky, barely football stuff if you're used to watching the league. Like, I do think that, like, the more you lose that side of it, you are going to see that monetary bubble burst in terms of the TV money and all that kind of stuff, because eventually what is your employer, ESPN, even paying for?
And I think that on top of the monetary bubble bursting, there is a legitimate argument of whether or not the competitive balance and standards are going to go down drastically. Because, listen, if I'm a parent or I'm a student, I'm not setting myself up to fail knowing I'm going to have to take 6 cross-country flights in a month just in order to be able to play my season, and I might not be able to even get through school. You know what I'm saying? Again, most student-athletes who go to college go because, A, they got a scholarship, B, they love to play, and C, their friends play or their family likes to watch them play, and they enjoy doing that. It's not because they're all going to strike it rich, and I'm not just talking about non-revenue sports. The experience of the doing is a large part of it, and if you create an environment that is so toxic that the doers no longer want to do it, well, then the product changes. And I think that's what a lot of people fail to understand. This will very much affect the quality of things at all levels of the game, because people are just going to be like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not worth it for me until, major changes start happening, not just in the NIL level, but in terms of schools actually paying kids, which at this point, I think you can't even remotely discuss the notion of student athlete even being a real term. If they're working this hard, literally, and the school's not paying them, it's just, I don't know, man. It feels like, literally Labor Day weekend in which we discuss, the employment history of this country, so to speak. This is a very, very bad signal for everybody going forward. And I don't know. I just don't think it's that cool. It's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, super lame for sure. Clinton Yates, ESPN, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So, like, what's the straw that breaks the camel's back? I think, like, if we're putting odds on it, roughly here, is it do we get to the point where the bubbles burst, or does the NCAA save itself from itself for the first time in its entire stupid history, or does a governing body, Congress, or one of the state governments too? Because, there's so many players involved here, Clinton. Like, we're talking about a ton of state schools. Like, state legislatures could have a massive impact on this if they really wanted to, because they could step in and control what's going on with that state school that is involved in any of the 50 states. So, if you had to rank those 3 entities, the market, the federal government, or the government, I should say, federal or state, or the NCAA being the entity that swerves this back on a sustainable course, which one would you put as the favorite?
The NCAA is probably third on that list, just because I feel like organizationally it's really difficult for them to really get anything done, as much from a procedural standpoint as it is from an execution standpoint. As for state governments themselves. That's an interesting one because a lot of these state governments are complicit in this issue. Most of the highest paid people in many states are the football coach. And so it's hard to sort of separate those two. But the reason why the market could be interesting is because it's going to affect a lot more things than just the people on the field. If people stop watching, if it doesn't become worth it for these schools, and then let's just say a school makes a decision that says, guess what? We're just going to stop playing football. Like, it doesn't make sense for us to do this if nobody goes and we're going in the red in order to do it. Look at Rutgers as an example. They joined the Big Ten and it hasn't worked out for them because they don't draw that many people. People don't really care about Scarlet Knights football. It's not that big of a deal there, even though they're getting paid out. They're spending so much money having to keep up with the Joneses that it's not necessarily worth their time. I think that's what it comes down to is this truly sustainable for the amount of dollars a school is getting back? SMU isn't even getting paid to play because they're that desperate to stay in a Power 5 conference. Cal, Stanford, they're talking about, oh yeah, we're going to see full shares from our conference in 10 years. In 10 years, you're going to see full shares? Are you kidding me? What kind of a business plan is that? It just, at some point, the house of cards is going to come down, and I feel worst of all for the kids. These athletic programs, people don't understand. It's not just like you roll out a bunch of balls and all the dudes just go to class and then go to the games. The support systems around college athletics are what makes the entire fabric of the sports. When those get uprooted and completely turned over, it's not fun for everybody, and people are going to want to stop doing it. And therefore, the quality of everything is going to go down. That's going to be the biggest death knell, is when the people involved no longer want to be involved because it's just not worth their time or their interest. That's how you kill something that is called the golden goose.
Yeah, which is crazy because, as you just said, it's a golden goose. This shouldn't be that hard. Like, they should be printing money. And instead, the greed is it's a big Icarus situation, if we're going to make some analogies here. We're a little close to the sun. Clinton Yates, you can watch him actually in 17 minutes on Around the Horn.
This is correct. I wore a very cool hoodie on today's program, so check that out.
Becky Hammond approved hoodie?
Let's just say it is of one of the greatest athletes in California history. How about that?
Okay. All right. We'll look forward to that. And now, update. 16 minutes on ESPN. You can also read his work, ESPN.com and Anscape. Talk to you next Friday, my friend.
Happy holiday weekend, Gregory. Be safe.
Thank you. See you. You too. Goodbye. That's Clinton Yates, everybody, with us here on The Hoffman Show. I'm not 100% sure we're going to keep doing Fridays during the season. We might shift days, but he will continue to join us weekly as he has since day one of this very radio show.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's The Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.